Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to my presentation on the topic of polymorphage, a Simic Dandan variant. Polymorphage is an 80-card shared library and graveyard format that centers the interaction between polymorph and library manipulation. The namesake cards are Polymorph and Phage the Untouchable. A common win condition is to cast Polymorph on an opponent's creature, causing them to reveal Phage and lose. However, it is far from the only way to win, and there are other creatures to apply pressure. Displayed is my current preferred list: 10 Polymorph, 2 Hunted Phantasm, 2 Hunted Troll, 2 Swan Song, 2 Beast Within, 2 Brainstorm, 2 Brain Surge, 2 Otherworldly Gaze, 2 Vanishment, 2 Griptide, 2 Memory Lapse, 2 Noxus Revival, 2 Vendilion Click, 2 Fencer Click, 2 Phage the Untouchable, 2 Stifle, 2 Sapphire Charm, 4 Quicken, 2 Daze, 2 Halimar Depths, 2 Cephalid Coliseum, 2 Lonely Sandbar, 2 Forbidden Orchard, 2 Mystic Sanctuary, and 22 Breeding Pool. There are several ways to give your opponent creatures on which to cast Polymorph in this format. Hunted Phantasms account for 2 of them. They can also serve as a threat. Hunted Troll is similar to Hunted Phantasm, but it's weaker because it is more expensive, it lacks evasion, and the tokens it creates have evasion. Beast Within is a removal spell that gives your opponent a creature on which you can cast Polymorph. Furthermore, it can be used as land destruction if they don't have anything else to target. Swan Song is an efficient counterspell for the many instants and sorceries in this format that also gives your opponent a creature token. Brainstorm is a highly efficient source of library manipulation. Library manipulation can be used to set up a polymorph on your own or on an opponent's creature, to disrupt an opponent's polymorph, or to protect your polymorph from certain sources of disruption. The ability to put cards from your hand on top allows you to return an otherwise uncastable Phage to the deck. Brain Surge is like Brainstorm. It provides card advantage that Brainstorm doesn't at the cost of much lower efficiency. Otherworldly Gaze is a source of library manipulation with Flashback. Flashback is interesting in shared graveyard formats because if you play it without flashing it back immediately, which you often won't, your opponent will gain the option to cast it again for a higher cost. So cards with Flashback should be timed carefully. Vanishment is a removal spell and source of library manipulation. In a shared deck format, if you return an opponent's creature to the library during their turn, you will draw it unless they have a way to draw an extra card. Furthermore, it has miracles, so it rewards setup from library manipulation. Griptide is another removal spell that puts the creature on top of the deck. Keep in mind that if your opponent plays a creature you do want, you can Griptide it and then polymorph your own creature to get it. Memory Lapse is a card from Classic Dandan that's a great source of interaction and library manipulation for a shared deck format. Noxus Revival is a free source of library manipulation and recursion. It is always castable, so your opponent will be unlikely to see it coming. Vendilion Click is an interactive threat that can see your opponent's hand to ensure that the coast is clear for your polymorph. However, Vendilion Click isn't the only click in the deck. Fencer Click is a flying threat whose ability to go on top of the deck at any time makes it an unlimited source of library manipulation. Of course, if you make your opponent draw it, they may do the same to you later. Other clicks to consider for your polymorphage deck include the Light Click and the Subscribe Click. Stifle is a highly flexible interactive card that provides an alternative use for Phage, and then it allows you to get it into play without losing. It also counters a myriad of other effects in the format, including the abilities of hunted creatures if you're trying to win with damage. Sapphire Charm has several abilities. Most often it will be used for delayed cycling, but it can also give a creature like Phage or Hunted Troll evasion to help you win with it, or it can disrupt Polymorph on your opponent's creature with phasing. Quicken is a big part of the format in that it allows for Polymorph during your opponent's turn. Also, as a cantrip, it can disrupt library manipulation. Daze is another point of interaction that's difficult to foresee because it can always be cast. Halimar Depths is a source of library manipulation that needs no introduction because it's been a staple of Dandan for years. Cephalid Colosseum is a source of a disruption of library manipulation or card selection that can also be used in conjunction with Noxious Revival to set up a polymorph. Lonely Sandbar is a classic Dandan cantripping land that can disrupt library manipulation. Forbidden Orchard is a land that's another way to ensure that your opponent always has a creature for you to target with your polymorph. Mystic Sanctuary is another Dandan classic that's a source of library manipulation and recursion. Breeding Pool is an island that's also a forest. I encourage you to proxy these instead of buying 22 of them. Thank you for watching my presentation. If you have any ideas for cards to include in this or other Dandan variants, please say so in the comments.